Hi everybody, I'm Dr. Monica, chiropractor, functional medicine practitioner, and yoga teacher here at Hometown Integrated Medicine in Lancaster, Ohio. And today I want to take you through a couple of different yoga poses and stretches for some low back pain. So first we're going to move into the cat-cow pose. I always like to do yoga poses first that have a little bit of motion involved, try to get the muscles warmed up because a muscle that's warm is going to stretch a lot easier. So we're going to start on our hands and our knees. Our shoulders are going to be over the palms of our hands to protect our wrists, and our knees are going to be under our hips, tops of the feet on the floor. Okay, now that we're all set, first we're going to lift the tailbone up to the sky while trying to keep a neutral lumbar spine or low back. We're going to let the chest sink through the shoulders and kind of drop that chest down, really giving us that extension, and we're going to tilt our head up. All of the extension should mostly be coming through our mid-back or our thoracic spine. With our low back pain, we don't want to activate any of those muscles. On the flip side of this, we're going to go into cat. We're going to tuck the tailbone under. We're going to push our chest back up through our hands. And we're going to try and really push that mid-back up to the ceiling. Really what we're doing is just trying to create a lot of length throughout our spine to decompress that low back. And we're just going to kind of go back through these postures at whatever pace feels good. Might have heard a little pop there, getting some motion myself. Really try to lift that mid-back up to the ceiling and sink down in. Awesome. From our cat-cow, we're going to move into downward facing dog. So we're going to untuck the toes, push back up, and we're aiming for this nice upside down V shape where our hips are the highest point here. You can have a generous bend in the knees. The idea for this is to really stretch this posterior side of our musculature out in the low back and into the hamstrings and the calves. Again, our hips should be the highest point. I like to pedal it out a little bit, get a little bit of an extra stretch going in the calves and in the hamstrings. Our head and our neck should be nice and relaxed. We don't want to create any tension from the top that we could feel all the way down to the bottom in our low back. If you're feeling like those neck and shoulders are a little bit too tense, try and turn your fingers a little bit outward so those biceps are facing forward. And then just kind of shake that head around a little. From our downward facing dog, we're going to kind of flow into a lunge. So what we're going to do is step one of our foots forward in between our hands. We're going to drop that back knee to the floor. We're going to untuck the toes so the top of the foot is flat against the mat. We're going to get a nice, generous bend in this front leg. And the idea of this stretch is to stretch our psoas muscle. The psoas muscle inserts right on like the inner front part of our thigh. And it actually crosses this plane of the body and inserts kind of right where the low back meets the mid back here. So to continue stretching that muscle and lengthening it, since it's a huge part of low back pain, we're going to do this lunge. We're going to, on a breath in, raise our arms up over our head. And we're really going to sink into this lunge. If you feel like you need a little bit more of a stretch, you can throw yourself a little bit backwards into extension and look up at your thumbnails. And take a deep breath in and out. And then we'll do the other side. All right, so we're in position to stretch the psoas on the other side of our body. Maybe this is a better angle that you can see, but the muscle inserts kind of right here on the inner portion of the front of the thigh. This muscle is really important. It's a huge part of lower cross syndrome, or a postural condition. And these days, a lot of people have desk jobs or jobs where we're driving a lot. We're in a forward flexed position, and this muscle is chronically shortened. So we need to put ourselves into a position that lengthens that muscle to decrease that forward compression we feel in the spine. Our lumbar spine should have a nice forward curvature to it from this side view. And so lengthening this muscle will help alleviate that tension on the spine. Next, we're gonna move into child's pose. I love this pose because I can feel my whole spine from right at that belt line area all the way up into the tops of my shoulders, get a really nice stretch. And that's what we wanna do. We wanna decompress the spine. We wanna lengthen all of those muscles that run right along the spine, those paraspinal muscles especially, give us a little bit more room to breathe. So in child's pose, we're going to keep our big toes together, and we're going to move our knees slightly wider than our hips, but not wider than our mat. We're going to try and keep our butt on the backs of our feet, and we're going to slowly lower down. Now I have this block here, and you're probably wondering I haven't used it all video yet, but this is what I wanted it for today. If you don't feel like you can fully bring yourself down to the mat, this is a great tool to use. We're going to try and rest our forehead on this if we can't rest it on the mat. We don't want to overextend ourselves and end up straining our low back in the process. I'm really trying to reach my fingertips forward on that exhale. Get as much length as I possibly can. In this position, I also like, I'll remove the block for this part, but I also like to get a good stretch on our quadratus lumborum muscle. It's a very large stabilizing muscle in the low back, and we can start to feel that if we stay in this position, but just slowly walk our hands off to the side. If you can imagine the muscles in the low back, that quadratus lumborum almost creates a trapezoidal kind of shape, with the base of our sacrum creating the bottom of that, and then an imaginary line between the tops of the quadratus lumborum muscles. So taking our body into this sideways posture is really stretching and opening up those muscles as well. So our last pose today is going to be focused on creating a little bit of strength in the body and firing off the appropriate muscles in the appropriate order to save our low back. So we're going to be doing a bridge. We're going to start with our back flat on our mat. And if you can try and walk the heels of your feet closer to your butt. Ideally, you want to be able to just be able to touch your toes here. We're also going to try and tuck our shoulders underneath our body up here so that when we do lift our hips, we're not using our mid-back muscles to engage anything. We want all the work to be coming from our glutes. So we're trying to strengthen our glutes here so we don't fire off any low back muscles. So we're gonna lift the hips and engage the glutes. We have a soft belly here for now, but if you wanna add a degree of intensity, then you're going to try and bring that belly button closer to the spine. Also, you can bring your arms underneath your body, put them in a bind, and you're gonna squeeze now. Your glutes have already been engaged. Your belly button is already closer to your spine. And now we're just creating a really stable shape. I just wanted to say thank you all so much for joining me today for our little yoga lesson on how to relieve some low back pain, and I hope you found this helpful. One thing I did want to mention, and I found this a really nice reminder as I was recently going through my yoga teacher training, that when you're doing postures like the lunge from side to side, you may see that you're more flexible on one side versus the other, and that's okay. These postures and poses are meant to help you wherever you are at in your journey. We're always going to aim for them to try and become more similar, but it's okay to be where you're at and let the pose work for you and try not to work towards the pose. So thank you all so much for joining me again, and I'm going to be on here next time talking about a different topic and some different poses.